Hello, world. We have a very special day today, all right? Hello,
That's
Nitya.
Hi, Frank, or should I be saying Frank the Fern? Hi, this is an awesome day. It's April 22nd, and you know what that means? It's Earth Day.
Awesome. So we should say something like, hello, Earth.
Hello, Earth. Works for me. I'm all set, you can see.
I will pause that. Where do you start with your news?
Absolutely. So let's get started and roll the slides. I actually have three things I want to talk about before we start a very special segment. First, if you've been watching this show, you might have seen us talk about the Visual Green Earth Challenge, a green tech challenge. Don't forget to go check it out. It's going to run through to the end of this month. And we have a very special guest today as we review what we've already got in terms of submissions. So stick around for that. Second, I also want to tell you about this interesting challenge that's happening in the US. It's a cloud skills challenge for Earth Day, and it's going to use cognitive services. If you're interested in this, learning paths that teach you cognitive services and an opportunity to submit something to be featured in a blog. And last but not least, this is my favorite segment. I have a 12-year-old. Many of us probably kind of work with kids or know kids who are really, really curious. Well, there's an exciting education package in Minecraft to teach about sustainability. Go check that out. It's really good. I've been doing it myself with my 12-year-old. Teaches you all about sustainability in your city, in your environment, and so on. So I'm super excited for this.
So you mean your 12 years old is teaching you how to do it, right?
We will not say anything. Man, I am so lost in Minecraft, but yes, he guided me. I will give him credit.
Awesome. All along this very special episode, we have special guests. If you have questions, put it in a chat, and at the end, we'll try to find the time and we'll ask them. If you're watching that on video on demand, type it in the comment down below, and we will bring that question and the answer back to you. So don't forget, the chat is over there or in the comment down below. But first, let's bring our special guest. So Nitya, we'll let you the honor of the introduction.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for this. So we want to welcome Asim Hussain. He is the head of the Green Advocacy section within Cloud Advocacy. And I'm super excited because he's got a lineup of very special guests who are going to walk through sustainable software engineering stuff. But first, Asim, tell us why Earth Day.
Thank you so much, Nitya and Frank. Thank you for having me on the show today. Yeah, today's Earth Day. Today is a very, very special day for all the green activists around the world. So Earth Day started in 1970. So last year was the 50th anniversary, and today is the 51st anniversary. And it actually started. It actually initially started more as a day of peace to kind of foster peace around the world, but now it's evolved into kind of sustainability and protecting our planet. And I've been talking all week. I've been giving my week's been completely busy with like presentations all the way through the week. Just as Niche has been busy playing Minecraft for her 12. Yeah, really.
Yes.
So today we've got three amazing guests on the show. So we've got Sara Bergman, and she's going to talk about electricity. Now, I am fascinated by electricity. Electricity is really, really important. It's actually one of the biggest drivers of carbon emissions on the planet, and our applications consume electricity. So she's going to talk about ways in which you can your tactics regarding electricity. And then we've got Bill Johnson, who's going to come along on the show, and he's going to talk about this concept called carbon intensity, which is this measure of how clean or dirty electricity is. And he's been doing this amazing work with Kubernetes and containers, and how do you actually scale things up and down in the greenest way when you take into account carbon intensity? He's going to talk to us about that. And Sarah Maston is going to come on, and she's going to talk to us about a project called Project 15. I love Project 15. It's so amazing. I love the fact it has the word 15, the number 15. It makes everything. I'm going to name every project I have from now on like just a number.
Definitely sounds serious.
So it sounds serious, right? This is Project 9. So it's Project 15. She's going to talk to us about that. And I'll let her introduce the concept. It's really amazing. It's about biodiversity and protecting animals from poaching. But first off, we have Sara Bergman on the show. Welcome to the show, Sara. Today, I think you're going to talk to us about, well, last time you talked about the energy usage and the sustainability of software. And I think today you're going to talk about how to measure electricity.
Exactly. Yes. Thanks a lot for having me. So yeah, last time I talked about how we can see electricity and energy as a proxy for carbon. And what does that mean? Well, it's not a one-to-one mapping, say you consume this much electricity and then this much carbon gets emitted into the atmosphere, because that's not really how the grid works. But it is a good proxy, because the general relationship holds. If you decrease energy and electricity usage, you decrease the amount of carbon you emit. But a proxy is something when it's hard to measure the original thing, you have a proxy instead. So we need to be able to measure that proxy, in our case, energy. So that's what I want to talk about now. And a rule of thumb here is to try to get as close to the real power draw as you can. What do I mean by that? Well, just get close and intimate with your hardware, get really close, because that's where you get the most accurate numbers. So a good way to get started, if you never consider measuring energy or electricity at all, is to get a watt-hour meter. They're not that expensive, and they're super simple to use. You just plug them into the wall and then stick your computer or your laptop on top of it, and you get real numbers immediately. And I think that's pretty cool. There are a few caveats to be aware of. For example, if you're using a device with a battery and you're trying to measure your app or website or whatever you're building, make sure your device is fully charged, because otherwise you'll end up measuring how much energy it takes to charge your device, which, I mean, that's kind of cool too, but it's not really what we're trying to do here. So just keep that in mind. Secondly, another option is to use hardware or operating system based energy metrics. So for Windows, for example, I know this is a favorite of ours, is the Windows Energy Estimation Engine, which is quite a mouthful, so I just shortened to E3. And what's good with these type of metrics is that we can access them with code. And that's good because we can not only see the metrics, which we only can with the watt meter, but we can actually use this to take informed decisions based on it.
Yeah, and I love tools like watt-hour meters. In fact, I can tell you right now, I'm consuming 769 watts right now, which is quite a lot.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But what about mobile phone developers or device developers? What can they do?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good question, because for software running on customer devices, it's not as easily accessible for us engineers. We can't really barge into our customers living room and can I please plug my watt-hour meter when you're charging your phone? Or it doesn't really work that way. So today I actually have a blog post coming up on the Microsoft SSE dev blog on this topic. You can just see it in the show notes on this particular topic. But I will be kind and give you the highlights. So firstly, what can you do in the development phase? And then once again, just the watt meter is a good start. But also, if you're building an actual native application, both Android Studio and Xcode, they have energy profilers built into them, which is good, because then you can see your energy usage very early in the development phase, which I think is great, because then you might not even have introduced those very expensive energy eaters. So you can just make sure they're gone right away. And if you have a website that is actually deployed, you can use a tool called Green Spectre, and that runs your software on an actual mobile phone and send you back the metrics, which I think is super cool. So yeah, I want to mention that on the blog there are several more posts on this topic on how to measure energy and electricity. So hop on over and check that out.
Yeah, definitely. So that's our sustainable software engineering blog, and Sarah's written quite a few articles on there. I've written some articles on there as well. Definitely head on over. I'm very, very proud of our blog. It's got some amazing material.
Yeah, me too.
And in fact, one of the best documentation that we have on the Power Config tool, which is kind of our E3 engine tool, is written by a gentleman called Scott Chamberlain, and you can find that on the blog as well. So thank you very much, Sarah. That's all really fascinating stuff. Thank you for coming on the show. Next up, we've got Bill Johnson, who's going to talk to us about carbon intensity and his work in that area. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you, and thanks for having me back, and especially on Earth Day. It's really, really cool to be here today of all days.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, tell me, what does what does carbon intensity look like for software engineers?
Yeah, easy for you to say. Yeah, so just as a little recap, the carbon intensity is essentially the amount of carbon that's needed to produce a kilowatt of energy. And so, as you can imagine, that fluctuates over time. It fluctuates as grids change, people use renewable energy or coal, or as just the weather changes as well. So taking advantage of those fluctuations is kind of the key in the software engineering side of it. So you can do that with changes that involve little to no code. The easiest of that is kind of just moving machines. So if you have things deployed in a region and it's a high carbon intensity in that region based on their energy grid, you can just move it to another region that has a lower carbon intensity. You know, things like your build machines or jump boxes or anything that are just always on are great examples of this. And so in Azure, we have two regions, US East and US East 2. And so the difference between them is actually pretty significant because the US East 2 region has a bunch of offshore wind as part of their energy grid. So by like changing one, just adding a 2 to your region configurations, you can drop your carbon intensity and your overall emissions there for your systems. It's also, you know, it's kind of why I really like the Kubernetes, the carbon aware Kubernetes implementations, because you can automate all of these decision making. You don't have to have somebody trying to look at these grids. You can pull in some of the APIs from Wattime that we talked about last time and automate this stuff in the scheduler of Kubernetes itself. You know, it's obviously a lot of code changes to do that, but I think it's really worth it to kind of put it on autopilot, not have to think about it. Doing batch processing as well is kind of another approach in there. So if there's anything that you have to do in a batch job, you can delay that so that it's at a better time that has a lower carbon intensity, or just like with all the other stuff we were just talking about, you can move that batch processing to another region that has some lower carbon intensities. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on here is using more of a serverless architecture. So by definition with serverless, you send a request and it does the job and that's it. And you only pay for that very small piece of compute that you just used. And so you're maximizing the amount of utilization in your system, and that's going to help reduce your overall carbon emissions too.
Yeah, no, I love serverless. I think serverless is a great one of the great solutions we can use to reduce the carbon emissions of our applications. But what would be the first step, let's say, for someone trying to make their system more sustainable? What are your recommendations?
Yeah, so I grew up on the 3 R's, you know, reduce, reuse, recycle. And so I'll point to that first R as kind of the first step, reduce. And so just in general, get more efficient in your systems. So shut down things that you don't need is probably the biggest thing. If you've got machines running all day long and you don't need them at night, you can shut them down. Or if you've got 10 machines running at night, you can bring it down to 3 to kind of handle the load or whatever that number may be. So shutting machines down, reducing the overall ones, co-locating services that maybe have some tight dependencies on each other so that they don't have to go over the network, and you can reduce that overall number of machines that you have. Interestingly, it varies from machine to machine, but what typically holds true is of a machine's power draw, their maximum power draw, about 50% of that is used just to have the machine running. So just to be idle, not doing anything else at all in the machine, it's going to use about 50% of its overall capacity on power. So by reducing those machines and the ones that you have on, it's actually a pretty significant bump to your overall intensity. The other thing to look at is specific CPUs and the processors themselves. So Intel and AMD are kind of the most common. AMD has a much lower energy profile than Intel does. And so just switching to a different VM that uses an AMD often will reduce quite a bit of your requirements and your resources. And then I know Sarah talked a lot about measuring energy, and it's great. I think those are all really good tips. I'm in Azure, and it's not super easy to go into a data center and plug in a watt meter or anything. So using proxies that she mentioned as well. So some really good proxies to measure your own resources is CPU utilization is one of the best ones there. Your build times, how long it takes to actually process the data you have, and then also looking at your network throughput. And so how much information are you pushing across the network, and how far away is that going? So just in general, if you think about it though, practicing good software engineering practices and hygiene often aligns very tightly with good sustainable practices as well.
Yeah, being a green software engineer is often associated with being just a good software engineer. So
Yes.
so yeah, that's what I think. So thank you so much, Bill, for all of your insights and tips. And next up, we have Sara Maston to talk to us about Project 15. Welcome to the show, Sara.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello,
What
world.
is Hello World? What is Hello 15? What is Project 15?
But you know what? Project 15 is maybe one of my best aha moments that turned into a project. So it really, at its base, was a project designed around what could the sort of commercial technical community bring to help accelerate scientific projects, which was spawned because a few years ago I had designed a safety solution. And I talked about, there was safe schools, safe workplaces, safe retail, anything safe. I was talking about how to make things safer using IoT. But I never thought of safe parks or safe animals. And when I met Dr. Eric Dinerstein, he has a solution called TrailGuard AI, and it's a camera trap, and it's sending events. And I realized really quickly that this was just another use case. And why would a scientific developer want to reinvent wheels if we could help by just meeting each other and sharing knowledge?
Yeah, sounds really inspirational work, and I love the connections like that. But I also heard it had a really interesting origin story. Can you share some details about that?
So at the very base, I call this the butterfly effect of innovation, because you never know where one idea is going to lead to another. And it all started because my cat was in a building that I thought was on fire because I saw a lot of smoke, and I ran in to save my cat. And then that led to, we need better systems to communicate in an emergency, which led to elephants, obviously. So that was really that. And a lot of people ask me, why is it named Project 15 from Microsoft? And so there's a very terrible fact that we lose an elephant every 15 minutes from this planet, and we will be out of those animals in 10 years at that rate. And so I kept it named that as a very serious name to keep the eye on what it's really about. And that's just the elephants. We lose a pangolin every 5 minutes. So there you go.
There you go. Well, thank you to your cat, I think, for communicating to you, as cats always do. Yeah.
With beady little eyes.
Beady eyes, and also its voice. What is the Project 15? What is the open platform, I think, is on Project 15? That sounds really interesting. Tell us about that.
So this is super exciting. Around month 3, when we put out the first video, it really was we thought of it as a kind of telephone where we were putting it out there to say, hey, scientific community, if this makes sense to you, call us. And we had a few NGOs, nonprofits, and organizations start to call. My co-founder, Daisuke, and I would meet with them and do an architectural design session, and we were drawing, what it looks like on Azure, how do you connect up your devices, etc. They may have had a lot of experience on the data science or the ML side, but they really didn't have a lot of experience on this IoT, plumbing that would go in as an infrastructure. So we noticed that it was always the same drawing for the most part, to about 85%. And then we actually got a phone call from the GEF Small Grants Program that's implemented by the United Nations Development Program. And they have a lot of projects. And so we had to come up with some ideas of how to scale. And so we designed the open platform and put it on GitHub that you could just spin it up, deploy to Azure, and it would just set up everything you needed, and it would hijack that timeline of learning and get people going. It's what we could do. I don't know how to save an elephant per se, but I know how to build that kind of thing, and that's what we did. And now, a few months ago, we enabled it so that you just, with a little true false, Boolean, do you want Azure Digital Twins version of this? So you can have Azure IoT Pass based, or you can have an Azure Digital Twins based.
That sounds amazing, and it's so inspiring. The story is so inspiring, and it's also so empowering as well. I mean, it's a way in which engineers and software engineers can kind of help to do some good in the planet, and it's an open source project, so I presume people can go onto GitHub and help out. So thank you so much, Sarah Maston. Thank you so much for your time and everything that you're doing as well. It's so good. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, thank you for being here. Now let's bring in Nitya back to introduce our next segment.
Yeah, so
Yes.
Frank, you're going to set me up for this?
Oh, yes. So now, Nitya, I want to know everything about that visual green tech challenge that you just start. Let's roll. We have a bumper for that. Come on, let's show it. It's awesome. Visual green.
That is agile. And I'm bringing in Loxley Kolakowski. I am so happy to see you. Hi, Loxley.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
Yes, so I'm going to share a few slides to tell our story, and then we're going to spend a lot of time talking about what you did for this. And this is amazing. So maybe we can share the slides. And I want to kind of set the stage by saying we've had this thing called visual storytelling and green tech, like combinations of what we can do. And I think a few weeks ago, we shared a visual guide to storytelling. Visual guide to sustainable software engineering, which was the basis for this challenge. And this is the one we're going to talk about today. And Loxley, you're familiar with it. And this is kind of like the visual green tech challenge. So what we did is we put out prompts every day, and we try to see, if someone would visualize their responses to it. And I think you might even know Rachel. Do you know Rachel Loxley from the Microsoft Student Ambassadors?
I think I met her through the Visual Green Tech Challenge. So, absolutely inspiring to just learn about her through this challenge, which is just so cool.
Yes, and I remember this because I think we had done a Microsoft Student Summit thing, and she was one of the folks who attended. So this was her visualization for Water Positive. And then I want to also give a shout out to Dasani. She's a PM at Microsoft, but she's an amazing doodler. Like, definitely follow her. She visualized zero waste, and she had this really nice hierarchy that taught me a lot about how we could think about our waste structure. And then shout out to Jen Looper. You all know her. She's like the education lead for cloud advocacy at Microsoft. And she did some amazing visuals for us for energy proportionality and network efficiency. But what I really love is that blog post she wrote on the Sustainable Software website that talks about how you can build a green browser extension. So all of those links will be in our show notes. But now, this kind of looks familiar, doesn't it, Loxley?
Yes, it does.
I just have to give it to her. We were blown away because there's this person who was just putting image after image, day after day. So Loxley has been submitting these for every prompt. And I like these two quotes from her that really summarize her kind of like attitude to this. Loxley, tell us a little bit about why you took this challenge.
Yes, I feel like it kind of goes back to being a Microsoft Learn student ambassador. It's like, first of all, I absolutely love learning. So, and I did not know, I'd done a couple things with serverless and even some green tech in the past. So this was just a way to learn so much more about it. And then the second part, which I am just so excited for, is having the opportunity to share what I've learned with others through these visuals, which has just been the best part of this month. Has been an absolute blast.
Yeah, and I actually want to share a couple of posts from this. First, I think on the slides, you've written blog posts that showcase all of the stuff that you've learned in the 2 weeks. And I think they're on the slides. So definitely go check this out. But I'm hoping we can walk through a few of your visuals over the next couple of minutes. This one, when you talk about bringing others in, was amazing. So tell us about this.
Yes, for this specific challenge, I actually had my twin sister, who is, I would say she's the artist of the family. She's an incredibly talented digital and physical artist. And she drew this fantastic, this is I live in the greater Seattle area. This is the northwestern version of a blue jay. She did this amazing blue jay for the kind of citizen science visual green tech challenge.
And I think for the rest of my life, I'm going to remember healthy ecosystems by this because it really visualizes to me you're helping the environment, getting data and converting it into insights. Beautifully visualized. And then there was this. I actually did get the link to the blog post. I'm going to put that on as well. But tell us about this. What did you learn from this particular prompt?
Yes, this is actually one of my favorite visuals I've done. And it's super funny because I was telling my brother, I was casually said, oh yeah, I'm doing this visual green tech challenge for Microsoft. And he's like, do you read this article about two-phase immersion cooling, which is just absolutely the most fascinating thing in the world, taking servers, putting them into a specially designed liquid that does not harm the hardware whatsoever. And this is just a way better, more efficient cooling process for the servers, which is saving a ton of energy. So creating this visual was extremely challenging, but also super rewarding.
I'm actually going to use this in one of the posts I write about this. This was amazing. And I'm going to kind of just wrap this, we move out of the segment, and kind of bring up two things. One, you mentioned you're a Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador.
Yes.
Visualization of the Learn module. And just tell us briefly about what's happening this weekend. That kind of
This weekend on Saturday, I'm co-hosting the Global AI Student Conference. It's in like the European time, so I'll be waking up very early to be a co-host. But if you're based in Europe, feel free to watch it in your time or watch it a couple hours later and like not live. So it is going to be an absolute blast. I highly recommend tuning in.
This is great. So I want to bring Frank back, and let's bring back some of our guests. So this is awesome. Frank, what do you think of this?
It was wonderful. I wish you a lot of fun on your conference. So you will see. I'm sure you will love it.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, it should be an absolute blast bringing together a bunch of students, a bunch of Microsoft Learn student ambassadors to share all of their learning about AI, which is also kind of connected to green tech as well. So that is just super exciting.
Thank you.
Yes,
but now I
absolutely.
want to bring back all our guesses today because we have a question from the chat. So I want to ask them and see if someone has the answer, or at least a track to get started. So people were very excited, and me too, Sara, about your topic. And Paulo was like, yeah, I want to know now how my dual screen is taking juice. And Catherine was asking, so what is the baseline of too high wattage or for your hardware? Like, when is the point that we should be concerned?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard to give like a short answer to that. But what I want to say is to keep in mind that whenever you buy a new device, it has a lot of embodied carbon. Like, we paid a lot of natural resources and carbon to produce that device. So the energy gain that you want to get has to be pretty high before you can like motivate the change of a like non-broken device. So yeah, sorry, no magic number, but definitely if we tie back to Bill, that reduce, reuse, recycle, reduce the amount of purchases is always a good way to go.
Thank you. That's a good start. So let's bring everybody for the wrap up.
So we should bring up Asim first.
Yeah, Asim.
So he can help host.
Right.
Yeah. And then I guess, yeah, there's Bill and there's Sarah.
Right. Like a big powwow at the end. I love that.
So I think your final calls to action before we wrap up.
So let's start by in order. So Asim, do you want to say anything?
Oh, sure. So I think the final, the call to action I always give is we have some training material on the Microsoft Learn platform, which you can get to. Well, it'll be in the show notes, but you can get to the aka.ms/sse learn, where a lot of the stuff people are talking about today are going to be covered as well. And I have a horrible feeling that might be other people's.
Excellent.
Well. But
and
anyway.
Sara, your blog post will be published later today?
Today, it's live.
Excellent. So it will be in the show note, the URL over there. Bill, any call for action?
Yeah, I'll underscore what they said. Check out the blog, check out the learning things, and then maybe I'll add, go outside, enjoy the earth today, and maybe read the blog while you're outside too.
Excellent. And we also the other Sara. So again, show notes for your reference to Project 15. It's all over there.
Yeah. Yes. Go check it out. Go look at the open platform. I was going to say go outside also, but after you go outside, check out the links and just know that if you're kind of like I was, you can help. Your skills are valuable. You just
wonderful. We'll wrap up now because the time is flying. So stay tuned for more. Jay Gordon is here with Azure Fun Bite, and I will see you tomorrow for another Hello World. Bye.
Happy Earth Day.